Hello, crafty friends. My name is Jessica, and welcome back to my channel. Today we have a card using the September 2024 Simon Says Stamp card kit. I absolutely fell in love with all of the cards that I saw on social media for this, using this card kit, so I went ahead and purchased it, and I'm so excited to play with it today. So here we're just doing a little mini unboxing, just quickly showing you what's included in this. I'm really intrigued by this paper. I think they call it either wasabi paper or rice paper, but I'm super excited to play with that. I do not play with it today. Today we're going to be playing with some of my favorite mediums. These are gloss sprays. And I have found that when we use gloss sprays on Yupo paper, it gives a really beautiful and unique result. So I have a degree in art and I did ceramics and painting for my final show. And the gloss sprays on the Yupo give a really beautiful ceramic glaze feel, especially when the ink pools. And so I don't really show that here, but I would encourage you to go check out my social media where you can see where I have pictures of these cards and also on my blog showing those little like cracking and where it looks like the glaze is crazing. So it's a really beautiful technique. I have a lot of samples. I'll link some below in the description box. Now we're going to go ahead and use this stamp set here, and we're going to do a little bit of heat embossing. I pulled out my favorite gold embossing powder. This is Antique Gold from Simon Says Stamp. And we're just going to go ahead and sprinkle this on some Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor. I'm using the back of the watercolor panel. That's a smoother side because we're going to be using some Distress Oxide inks to go ahead and watercolor these in a really fun way. Amy R. over at Prairie Paper and Ink had recently used these in her video using this set, and I was very inspired. She used a lot of different colors, and I really wanted to focus on the oranges because I thought the orange against the green kind of evergreen background would pop really, really well. So we're going to go ahead in with the water to begin with, and then we're just like dabbing the oxide colors on top. Now, because I went in with the clear water first, it's going to make the ink here wick and it's going to blend. I'm not going to have to do a lot of it, but it's still going to keep a lot of the intensity with these colors, but they're going to blend around the edges. So when you're out looking at leaves, especially in areas that have like, the maple leaves and the oak leaves where leaves are starting to drop right now, leaves look like this. I was at my mom's house. She has some really beautiful maple trees and was inspired by some of the ones that I found in her yard when we were in the back playing. So it's a really fun technique. It does a lot of the blending. It takes a lot of that extra steps out for you, and it gives a really beautiful, almost stained glass look with these leaves because of all the different little sections that they have with the embossing powder. It's also a fool's way to just play and not have to worry, not only with the blending, but because we did a embossing powder here, it creates little wells and it allows the ink to not escape outside where you don't want it to go. So really recommend this. It's a fun technique, really easy. You can do it with Distress Oxides, you can do it with regular dye inks, and of course watercolor. They're all going to react in a very similar way. I chose oxides because they do have that pigment quality, and so they end up being a little bit more opaque and brighter in color than a dye ink. A dye ink's going to be a little bit more translucent and maybe not as bright as these. But I will recommend going and checking out Amy R's video. She does side-by-side Distress ink and Distress Oxide ink, and they are very similar in color and tone, but very different in the same way. I highly recommend it. I'll link her below. So we're just finishing up here. I went ahead and did a whole bunch of leaves. I do not end up using all of them. One, I do not have the dies for this set, but there are dies available. So I highly recommend you grabbing them if you're not a huge fussy cutter. I don't mind fussy cutting, but when it came down to this particular little leaf cluster, I decided I was not going to fussy cut that one. So I am going to just set that aside in the chance that I get the dies someday, and then I can go ahead and cut that out. But the other ones cut out really, really easy. The nice thing about these leaves is they're straight lines, easy to cut out, so it wasn't that big of a deal. While I am letting the other ones dry and kind of waiting to use the little leaves and be able to drop the color in so that they aren't overly mixing, is I'm kind of going back and just adding more intensity on some of the leaves that have already dried. And then right at the end, I think I'm getting close here. We're just going to add a little bit of stippling. So I wanted to add just a little bit of playfulness, and I really loved the way they blended back, but I wanted to create just a little bit more. When you're looking at leaves out in nature, they are not these like smooth, lovely blends. A lot of times they do have spotting in different colors or in different parts of the leaves. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm kind of just pouncing my paintbrush by picking up the colors and kind of pouncing them in the same areas where that color is. I'm not doing it a lot, but I'm doing it mostly with that darker reddish kind of orange just to give it a little bit more depth and dimension here. So I did go ahead and heat set those off camera, and then we're just going to go ahead and fussy cut. Like I said, this set does have dies. I did not grab it, but you can definitely grab it if the kit is still available. You can add on the dies so that they all do ship together, which is a really nice new feature from Simon Says Stamp, and this is the first time I'm using it. I did not, but also that's included in the set is a stencil set. So lots of options for this beautiful stamp set to have to create some really fun fall feeling cards. Another great thing about these card kits is they are, of course, filled with lots of really fun product and sometimes some new product that you might not be known to or never experienced. Like for me, I've never experienced that paper. I think it's called rice paper or washi paper. So I'm excited to play with that. But also, all of the supplies in those boxes are available independently outside of the kit. So, like, I love jewels. I can go and buy additional jewels if I end up using them all. Or I love that paper. Let's go ahead and order some more. So, a really great price point and really fun just to kind of have a little pairing of items to get started with your creativity. Now, if you're new here, welcome. I am the fiddling queen. It takes me a little bit of time, most cards, let's be honest, to figure out how I'm going to lay it out. I never go into a card knowing exactly what I wanted to do. I'll be honest, my original thought was to have the leaves kind of off to the side. And while I did like that, it just wasn't what I wanted. I really wanted these orange leaves to be a focal point, and when they were over onto the side like that, it felt that the focal point had shifted more so with that background. And while I think it's a really beautiful background, that's not where I wanted the emphasis put. So I really wanted to have the emphasis be these leaves. So we're going to add a little bit of twine and go ahead and put those down in that lower left-hand corner. I'm going to add a white border, so I'm just trimming off about 1/4 of an inch here. I was definitely just eyeballing it to ensure that it was hitting correctly, or I was getting the same amount on both sides. My trimmer with my actual where I can see how much I'm trimming off is on the other side of my desk, so I was being just a little bit lazy here. We're going to go ahead and use some phone tape to pop it up. I use Altenew phone tape for background panels. It's my absolute favorite. Highly recommend. It's the most beautiful loft and the perfect dimension for background panels. So recommend it 100%. So my panel here is still just a little bit tacky. So I'm trying to be careful, especially where that color has pooled quite a bit. I'm getting a little bit of transfer onto my hands here. So we're just going to be mindful of that. I want to make sure that I'm not mucking up my orange leaves as we get ready to adhere them. Now, you're probably wondering, and we'll get to that, but like, Jessica, how are you going to put that twine on your card? You'll see. I definitely should not have glued the background panel down, but I have a solution if that's the case. You know, I'm forever pivoting and changing and growing during card making. every single time. So while I'm using a little bit of liquid glue and foam to pop up these leaves, I'm also realizing that I forgot to put the twine on before gluing. I got so excited to put that foam tape down and I kind of forgot. So a great and easy way to put twine on when you've already adhered everything is to go ahead and open your card up flat like this and use an X-Acto knife to cut right there at the crease line. Then I'm just using my scissors to open it up just a little bit more, and then we're essentially threading and sewing this twine onto the card. Now you are going to have it go into that white, which I really enjoyed. I like it when parts of cards go off of the main panel. So I thought that that was okay with me. So I went ahead and did it 3 times. And then I'm going to bring the ends to the front of the card so that we can do a bow. So we're just going to loop it back through. This is going to give us 4 strands of that twine. And then I'm going to just use my little leaf here. This is where I want the stem to be, is right on this, or the string right on this stem. So I'm just trying to ensure that I get the knot right below it. And then we're going to go ahead and do our bunny ears over and wiggle and finagle until I get that bow right where I want it. And then we're going to go ahead and trim the edges. So this is an easy way to go ahead and add the twine to the card if you've already put the panel down and you are unable to put it behind the panel. I'm just lining it up there. I think it looks really, really beautiful. Now, for those who are not okay with the fact that the string is on the back of the panel, you could cut a white or colored panel down and go ahead and adhere that to that back to cover up that string. It doesn't really bother me, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as is. Now we're going to go ahead and get the sentiment, and the card kit came with some of Simon Says Stamps cardstock. So inside the card kit, there's this really beautiful deep brown color, and I'm going to go ahead and grab a sentiment here from the set and that brown paper because I thought that brown would look really good as a sentiment strip. And I really like these sentiment strips because they're dainty and compact. And we've got a lot going on in this card. So having this really dainty and small sentiment, even though the words make a big impact, are nice to just be able to tuck in where I'm going to put it. And you'll see that in a minute here. So I grabbed the one that says "You're in my thoughts," and then we're going to go ahead and heat set this. Use a microfiber cloth to get off that powder. I didn't get it off the whole paper, but there will be opportunities for that later. I did go ahead and just scrubbed the words pretty good. Make sure that you wait for your embossing powder to dry a little bit. Don't go in and try to remove that powder right after heat embossing. I have smeared them before, so that's just a little PSA for the day. We're going to add some more foam tape. Go ahead and tuck that in there right by those beautiful leaves. I'm really loving those colors. I'm a summer girl. I love the heat. I don't like to be cold, but man, there's something so beautiful about fall. We're just going to finish this card by adding the jewels from the card kit, and it looks like it's a really lovely mix. I'm going to take some time to let you know that all of the supplies used today are linked below in the description box, so be sure to check that out. Please note that they are affiliate links, and what that means that if you click on a link and shop with me, I do receive a small commission at no cost to you. This just helps keep my craft room fresh and continues to let me know that you like the content that I'm putting out. Thank you for being here. Let me know what you think about the card below, and take care.